on your feet and get excited because we're getting ready to start in 15 seconds. I need you to stand up, shake, wiggle, get all your jiggles out. Here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, it's good to see everybody. I'm so excited to be here, and I just wish I could see you guys live, but we got to do this another week. Maybe we'll be back next week, hopefully. Also, collect your hygiene items, and you can bring them in when you come back here, the next time you're back here, or you can bring them into the office and give it to them. And remember your buddy barrel. Make sure you fill up your buddy barrel and bring it in too. Also, what is the purpose of a Seastone Kid? Wait, I think I heard you, but I'm not sure, but say it again. What is the purpose of a Seastone Kid? Love God and love others. Good job. All right, kids, what time is it? It's game time. Woo, Miss Bethany.
Okay, friends, for game time, all you need is some cereal and a little bowl. I'm going to set the timer for 1 minute, and I'm going to see how many pieces of cereal I can move into my bowl. But I am not allowed to use any hands, okay? All right, well, I can use the hand for my straw, but don't use your hands to touch the cereal, okay? All right, and I want to know if you can beat me. So if you do this at home, please put in the comments, and we will see how we do. All right, here's a minute. On your mark, get set, and go. Oh, I'm out of breath already. Ah! Ah! The cereal smells so good, I just want to eat it. Woo! How much longer? Where'd my timer go? There it is. I'm out of breath. Let's count. All right. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. All right, let me know if you can beat 26, okay? All right, have fun.
Well, good morning, Seastone Kids. I'm Pastor Jake, and Toby and I, we're going to do the Bible story for you today.
Hey, how do you know who I am? And who are you?
Toby, I'm Pastor Jake, and everybody knows about you.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty a smart guy, so I think I'm going to have to help you tell the story, right?
Yeah, I definitely am going to need your help, Toby.
Okay, I know every story in the Bible, so be ready.
Oh, good. I can't wait to have your help. So today's Bible story is all about a man named Abraham and his wife, Sarah. Abraham and Sarah, they wanted to have children, but they were really, really old. In fact, they were older than most of your great-grandparents. Abraham was 99 years old, and Sarah wasn't much younger. She was 90 years old.
Wow! He must have been in pretty good shape when he was young. I bet he played basketball, didn't he?
Well, I don't know if they had basketball then, but if there was any kind of sport, I'm sure he was playing it.
Well, man, he's a pretty old guy for being the Bible. Those Bible guys were pretty old.
Yeah, some of them grew to be quite old, over 100 years old. So you might have heard, have you ever heard of a 90-year-old lady having a baby? I don't think so. No way. I have never heard of it. That just seems crazy. Most moms, when they have their baby, are in their 20s, 30s, maybe into their 40s, but not much after that. It happens, but not a lot of times. Now, I want you to think about that while I tell you what happened next.
Oh, let me think.
All right, Toby, take your time. Toby? You okay, man?
Sorry, I passed out. I was thinking too much. Woo!
You feeling all right?
You told me to think, and I was thinking. Now I can't even hardly see straight.
You gonna be okay, Toby?
Yeah, I'll be fine.
All right.
Okay, let's keep going. This is an interesting story.
Well, one day, Abraham heard from God, and it was a very special moment. Can you imagine God speaking right to you? Abraham knew it was God, so he listened very closely. God said to him, Abraham, I promise that you will be the father of many nations. What? No way, no way. How could he be the father of many nations? He was 100 or almost 100 years old.
Wait a minute. If he was 100 years old when he had his kids, was he able to drive them to school? You think he drove them to school?
I don't know if they had cars back then. They might have just thrown them up on a donkey or something. And
Well, that would be pretty old if he had to drive him to school, because he probably couldn't see very good since he was so old.
yeah, I don't know how that would work. That probably wouldn't be too good though, would it?
Probably not.
Well, one day, not long after God made the promise to Abraham, Abraham was working in the oak grove when three important men, they came by. Abraham chose to honor them by inviting them to stay for a nice lunch. They accepted his invitation and sat down in front of Abraham's tent to eat with him.
You know what? That's so weird. Every single week, it seems like they always have to eat. Every week they have a story where somebody's eating.
Don't you like to eat, Toby?
I love to eat. You know what my favorite food is?
What's your favorite food?
Ants.
Ants?
I love ants. Ants are just so delicious.
You know, Toby, I heard that red ants are the most juicy.
Ooh, I like you because they are. They are the best. They're so juicy.
Well, I'm glad to know that, Toby.
Actually, I got one right here in my pocket. You want one?
Sure. It's like just bursting with flavor and juice in my mouth.
Those were the fruity ones.
That's delicious.
Okay, let's keep going.
Well, one of the men told Abraham, this time next year, your wife will have a son. And at that point, Abraham was sure God had been telling the truth when he made the promise. However, when Sarah overheard the man, she laughed out loud, LOL'd. And she said to herself, that's crazy. I am way too old to have a child.
I bet when that kid got older and went to school, I bet it was weird going to a parent-teacher conference.
I bet it was too. People would be like, is this your great-grandma bringing you a parent-teacher conference?
That would be so weird.
Well, Sarah wasn't sure it was possible for her to have a baby at such an old age, but God had different plans. He promised Abraham that Sarah would have a child, and they found out what you are going to find out in your lesson, that whatever God promises, He will do.
You know what?
What?
I hope God promises me $1 million.
$1 million? You hope He promises you $1 million?
If He promises me $1 million, He has to keep His promise.
What would you do with $1 million, Toby?
I'd buy me a new hat,
A new hat? What kind of hat?
a purple one.
Oh, that would be really nice.
But I don't know if it'd cost $1 million though, so I'd probably give some to my friends.
Well, that's very generous of you, Toby. Am I your friend?
You are now, since you like ants.
All right, let's go.
All right.
So for Abraham and Sarah, he did what was promised. A year later, just like God said, Sarah had a baby boy named Isaac. And Isaac would go on to have children, and he had grandchildren, and they would be the leaders of many nations, just as God promised.
Wow. Do you have any grandkids?
I don't. I only have some very small kids of my own right now.
Because you look pretty old.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Most people think I look like a kid still.
Oh, well, the kids around here, the kids that here look like they're only like 5.
Some of them are, aren't they?
Oh yeah, I think they are.
Well, you'll learn in your lesson today all about the importance of trusting God no matter what, because He always keeps His promises. And listen closely, because I'm sure you will learn a lot.
Well, thank you, Mr. Jake. That was a good story, and I hope I see you guys next week.
Yeah, I hope so too, Toby. High five.
High five.
Do you guys know what it means to tell a lie? When you lie, it means that you say something that is not true. And do you want to know the truth about something? Everyone has lied. Everyone has lied before. Several years ago, I was making a cake, And I put on a ton of frosting because I love frosting. Gooey, ooey, gloppy, sweet-smelling frosting. I would eat this whole thing if I didn't think it would ruin my lipstick. I love frosting. So I made a cake and I put a lot of frosting on it. And I looked at my children who were 2 years old and 4 years old, and I told them, do not touch this frosting. I ran upstairs to do a little something, and when I came downstairs, I looked at my cake, and do you know what I saw? I saw that one of them had touched the frosting. There were finger marks scraped through that frosting, and little holes where a finger had poked through. I looked at my boys, who were, 2 and 4, and I said, which one of you touched this cake? And they both looked at me and said, I didn't touch the cake, Mom. It wasn't me. And I knew one of them was lying. Do you know how I knew one of them was lying? One of them had frosting all over their mouth, their fingers, and even in their hair. See, we all have maybe told a lie like that, or maybe even a bigger lie before. Now, when we lie, we disobey God's word. God says this in the New Testament. It says that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And so when we lie, we are not being like Jesus, and so it is a sin. Now, we have learned that in the story that Mr. Jake and that Toby read to us, that God has never lied, that God is a promise keeper. He tells the truth about things. He is a truth teller, and so should we be then. God keeps his promises, and that is a wonderful, wonderful thing for us. Abraham and Sarah's experience with God in the book of Genesis that we just read, the very first book of the Bible, it right away shows us that God is a promise keeper. Because God told Abraham and Sarah that they were going to have a baby, even though they were ancient. They were so old, and usually old people are not able to have babies. But Abraham and Sarah were able to do it because God made the impossible possible. And just like God promised, Sarah and Abraham had that baby and named him Isaac. Now, God cannot lie, and because God cannot lie, whatever he promises will come true. Let's travel through the scriptures, through the Bible, and see if we can remember how God has kept his promises through some of the stories you and I have learned this past year. Well, first, we just did read about how God kept his promise to Abraham and Sarah and gave them a baby. And then, do you remember when we learned about the fire and the clouds leading God's people? How God rescued them from slavery because he said he would do it, and he did just that? Do you remember when we learned about Noah and the flood and how God sent that rainbow and promised to never flood the whole earth again? And God has kept that promise. Now, this next month, during the month of Christmas, we're going to learn how God kept another promise when he promised to send his son to help. If you follow Jesus, then you should be a promise keeper too, because that's what Jesus is. So when you promise to be a good student, you don't cheat on a test. When you promise to be a good friend, you don't gossip or say something mean about a friend. When you promise when you're way older to get married and to love someone forever, you keep that promise after you're married and you only love that person forever. See, when we read God's word, it tells us about how he keeps promises, so we should keep our promises too. Lastly, when we read God's word that's full of promises, it helps us to trust him no matter what. Sometimes when we're going through a hard situation in life, we can be tempted to think that God has forgotten about us, or that God is not strong enough for our problem, or that God maybe even is too busy for us. But this is why it's so important to read God's Word all the time, because it reminds us of all of the promises He has made to us. So I'm going to tell you just a few of the promises God has made to me. Now, first, what I want to do is I want to see what kind of memory you have. Now, we have all memorized things before, but I'm going to put you to the test. Do you know your phone number? If you know your phone number, can you let me know? Just wave at me on the camera. Okay. I remember my phone number from when I was in 4th and 5th grade, 630-393-4409. That is in my brain forever. How about your address? 3 South 645 Elizabeth Avenue, Warrenville, Illinois, 60555. That's where I lived when I was a kid. Do you have your address memorized? How about your birth date? October 21st, I'm not even going to tell you how old I am. Do you have your birth date memorized? Good job, good job. I know what you have memorized. Do you have an iPad password memorized? I bet you do. Now, how about this? I'm going to sing a song, and you tell me what letter comes right after where I stop. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. What comes after K? L, you're right, it is L. Do you want to know how you knew that? Because you memorized it. See, you have a fantastic memory. And we should use that memory to put God's Word in our mind and in our heart so we could use it when we need it. All right, so I'm going to show you some things here to help us remember some of God's promises to us. So here's one of God's promises that I like to remember. This is my blankie. Actually, do you know who made me this blankie? Miss Ashley made this for me. Maybe Miss Amanda helped, I can't remember, but I know Miss Ashley did. And this is my blankie. I sleep with this blankie every single night. And Pastor Eric says, that blankie's taking up so much space in this bed. But I don't care because I cuddle it. Oh, it brings me so much joy. It is with me all the time. Every vacation I go to, when I go to sleepovers at my parents' house or at my sister's house, when I go on vacation, everywhere I go, this blankie comes with me, even maybe just on long car rides. This blankie never leaves me. And you know what? The Bible says that God will never leave us. Deuteronomy 31:6 says that God has told us in His Word that He will never leave us or forsake us. So look at my blankie. God will never leave us. That can remind us of a promise He has made to us. Another promise God has made to us is God has said that He will give us peace. He says, peace I give to you. Peace is when you're struggling and when you're stressed out or maybe you're concerned about something, and peace just washes over you and it brings a calmness to you. So here's something that helps me sometimes at night. Oh, I wish you could smell this through the camera. This is called Vicks. Vicks Vapor Rub. For some reason, all the Italians like Vicks. But I'll just take a little Vicks at night and I put it right next to my eyes and I put a little bit on my nose. And sometimes I'll take a little bit and put it on my neck right here. And it just does this for me. I feel like it takes all of my stress away. So this reminds us that God gives us peace. He promises that in His Word. And here's the last thing. I've got very sensitive eyes. Whenever I'm outside for a long time, if the sun is too bright, I do like this. Or sometimes the sun gives me a headache. So I always have sunglasses on me. I probably have 10 to 15 pairs of sunglasses in my church bag, in my purse, in my car. I have them in my backpack, in my gym bag. My sunglasses are everywhere so that I can always protect my eyes. And this can remind us of what God says in Psalm 91. In Psalm 91, God says, I will send my angels to protect you and to watch over you. So listen, these are things that we can memorize and put into our heart and mind for when we need them. These are things that God has promised to us. And if He has promised them, we can count on them to come true. That God will never leave us or forsake us. That God brings us peace. That God will always protect us. See, these are just some fun things to help us remember the promises of God. So your job this week is when you're reading your Bible every day, like we are training to do, when you read your Bible every day and you come across something that God has promised to you, I want you to write it down. And I want you to tell me about it, either in the comments or on YouTube, or you can have your parents text me or email me. I want to see and hear what God has promised you in His Word, in the Word that He has given us. Let's memorize these promises of God because they will bring us peace and joy and happiness and calmness whenever we're going through a difficult time in life. We can count on God because God keeps His promises. All right, would you pray with me today, friends? God, thank you for your word. Thank you that even though the story about Abraham and Sarah happened thousands of years ago, God, I thank you that it is still true today. You don't change, so your word doesn't change. You are still a promise keeper, and we are thankful for that. Thank you, God, that we can count on you. Now, friends, if you have something that you need to pray about today, just take your hand and put it over your heart and let me pray with you. God, I pray for my friends that are sad, that are sick. God, I pray for my friends that are frustrated in life or that are worried about something. God, I pray for my friends who have had hurt feelings, or I pray for my friends who have sick family members or sad friends. Lord, I ask that you would bring peace to them like your word promises. I pray that you would give joy to them like your word promises. Lord, I ask that all of your promises would be shown true to these children in these difficult times. In your name, amen. Amen. Thank you for joining me today, friends. All right, boys and girls, I have one other announcement for you. Starting in December, you can pick up your Christmas kit in the office during office hours, or if you're having an issue, just reach out to me and I will deliver it to your doorstep. In this kit, there are several activities that are going to help you and your family celebrate Christmas together. The meaning of Christmas is the birth of Jesus, and we want to remember and to remind ourselves exactly why we have this fun holiday season. So get your kit quickly and have fun with your family. Boys and girls, thank you for coming to church with me today. I appreciate you sitting here, and I can't wait to see you again soon. And don't forget to love God and love others this week.